Hey everybody, I wanted to do another vlog, another update. I'd like to do these things a little bit more often. I was going to do these things just every time I had an update on the case and everything. In case is the first time that you're tuning into one of these, basically my ex-wife put me in the hospital for about a year. I was going back and forth from Scott Air Force Base, the mental health clinic there. I spent a week in the inpatient clinic inside Jefferson Barracks VA Medical Center in St. Louis, Missouri. Veterans Affairs, that's what VA means. I had to go back and forth from there. I was prescribed hydroxyzine, sertraline, and atomoxetine, as well as a type of statin, atorvastatin, I think it's called. But all because of what she put me through. And also, I was going to whatchamacallit, not a mood group. That was another different time that I had to go there, but it was an interpersonal skills group at Jefferson Barracks VA Medical Center in St. Louis, Missouri. And in Belleville, I was going to the Nonviolence Prevention or the Violence Prevention Center in Belleville, Illinois. And so I was going to daily meetings with one of these people. It was either the psychologist at the Scott Air Force Base Mental Health Clinic or the psychiatrist. For a while, I actually had to meet her daily at Jefferson Barracks. I think she retired or moved or something like that, and so she got switched out with a man. So then I had to start meeting him, not daily, but at least every week. So once a week it would be at the Scott Air Force Base Clinic, mental health clinic. Once a week it would be down there at the at Jefferson Barracks with a psychiatrist. Once a week it would be down there at the Violence Prevention Center in Belleville. Once a week it would be the interpersonal skills group at Jefferson Barracks, and once a week it would be the VA Move program. They had to make sure that everything, I was taking care of myself on a physical basis as well. So I had to go to there as well. All these things were required. The VA has the ability to go and get you. They like to do that for homeless veterans. If somebody's standing on the side of the road that says, you know, I'm a veteran, there's actually a number that you can call and reach a homeless veteran outreach, and they'll go and get them and verify their veteran status and provide them with something, anything that they have at the time, whatever resources that they have at the VA. That's dedicated to that whole thing, because it was a big problem throughout history for a long time, homeless veterans. And so all that being said, you know, 5 days a week for a year, I spent almost all of 2018, if not a little bit more, in a hospital 5 days a week, in some sort of medical center, talking to a counselor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, 5 days a week. Or in the case of the VA Move program, it was more along the lines of physical therapists, nutritionists, dietitians, and the like. But that's what I went through. And I had even I had a panic attack whenever I was down there in San Diego, where my wife was stationed at the time. And I was warned by medical personnel that with my family history of heart attacks, I can't remember when my grandfather on my dad's side died of a heart attack, but he was quite young. My father was only 17. And it was like the day before he was going to inform his father about me, because he had already my mother was already pregnant with me. But that's the whole situation. So even then, all of that, none of that stopped her from doing anything. She was told by her commanding officer on board the USS Carl Vinson, CVN 70, to go to counseling, both for the $75,000 in debt that she put us into. She was told to go to counseling, go to medical, for any of these reasons, and she was also told that by her direct superior. I have a copy of that counseling chit. And she was told to go to the hospital by the doctor in charge of the family advocacy program in San Diego, as well as our marriage counselor, Maricela Larkin, in San Diego, or at least that's where she was at the time, and she was paid for through Military One Source. So all of those things happened. She disobeyed direct orders. She broke, a ton of laws. It was very clear that she was mentally ill. It was very clear that she was some kind of narcissist. I don't know if she had narcissist personality disorder, but basically she thought it was okay that I nearly died of a heart attack. It was okay to hurt other people. It was okay to commit crimes that laws didn't apply to her specifically. Some girl from Jerseyville, Illinois. The laws just didn't apply to her specifically. And just the suggestion to go to the hospital was a insult to her, because she thought that she was perfect, or every single action that she did was right or correct or whatever. I can't. Whenever you start trying to think about why a person does what they do, whenever they've got something wrong with their brain, whenever they have some kind of mental illness, you'll drive yourself crazy, because, by very loose definition, they're crazy. I can remember doing things that didn't make any sense. I can remember whenever I first showed up at the inpatient center, at the inpatient program at the Jefferson Barracks VA Medical Center. Whenever I first showed up there, I was beside myself, and I was crying, and a social worker was trying to figure out what was wrong, and I said, I'm being taken care of by my grandparents. I'm in the middle of a divorce. I'm penniless. I have no income. I'm a full-time student. The pressures are too much for being a student. I was just part of the Army ROTC, and I just got kicked out of the program for depression, which I didn't have until after, it wasn't confirmed and diagnosed, and then had medicine prescribed for it until after I left the inpatient program. And so they basically kicked me out of the program for no reason, and denied me a job and all of the potential scholarship opportunities, and even tried to charge me for my all the money that they had given through stipends and whatnot, all because of basically a mistake on their end. They had no proof whatsoever. And that's sort of a story that just keeps going, because my ex-wife blamed me for everything. She kept saying that everything that I was saying about her was actually true about me, and she just kept lying to everybody that would listen, and she had no proof whatsoever. She swore that she had a recording of me doing violent things to her, but she wouldn't show anybody this recording. I said, upload it. She said, you're just going to pluck it apart and then make me look bad. And I said, then you could upload the whole thing. It's easy to tell the truth. It's very easy to live with the truth. And so I kept up on that. I kept trying to figure out other different things, but she didn't care. She didn't care that she broke the law. She didn't care that she was disobeying direct orders. She didn't care that she had nearly killed somebody. She didn't care how many people that she hurt. She didn't care how much debt that she was in. She didn't care about any of these things. And like I said, you start thinking like a crazy person. You're just going to drive yourself crazy. Whenever I was crying and beside myself at the inpatient program at Jefferson Barracks, I was worried about my family dying and how the whole family's going to go down because there's not enough people that know how to run the farm, and this entire family is based on around the farm. I was worried about stuff like that, and God only knows how far in the future that is. And I was beside myself in the moment. That's the major depressive disorder talking. That's that generalized anxiety disorder that I was diagnosed with. I was diagnosed with both of those things talking. Whenever I was speaking with a friend of mine later on, I was saying that I just don't know what's missing in my classes. It's quite a bit missing in my classes. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and he says, nothing is missing. You have infinite potential, and you can do whatever you want. You're just making excuses and stuff like this. I said, there's so much that I've already accomplished in my life that's just not true. That's just demonstrably not true. I'm trying as hard as I can, and I'm doing all these things, and I'm accomplishing all these things. Both branches of the military that I was in, the Navy active duty, the Navy reserves, active drilling reserves, and Army ROTC, all these different things that I've done. I've accomplished a lot with very, very little. I've always been lower class. I've always been, in relative poverty compared to just about anybody else in the United States, with very few exceptions. And I've been homeless for several times, and I'm living in this camper, and that's technically you're technically able to be classified as homeless if you live in a camper, because of the way that the whole classification system works. A lot of homeless people live in tents, but some homeless people actually do live in campers. Some people choose the life, some people don't. It's a very odd classification. You really can't figure it all out. If you've got a roommate and they live on your couch instead of having their own room, are they homeless? Or if two of your kids have to share the same room, is one of them homeless? I don't understand the classification, but it's very odd. But and that's the whole thing that went down. And of course we got divorced and in February, and now I don't know what to do. But that's the background. And in my first update video, which I posted sometime last year, it's a little over an hour long, and me staring straight into the camera just like this, but in a different location at the time. And my first update video, I show all of my medical records, all 600 pages of it from all these different organizations. I have all the proof that anybody needs that I was a victim of domestic violence, of abuse from all different angles that abuse can come from. I have all the evidence. That's the difference between my ex-wife and I, is that I actually have evidence for what I'm saying, and she doesn't. She never has. And so she just, tried to block off as many people as possible from the truth. And anybody that she kept close was somebody who believed her side of the story and refused to look at any evidence. And she refused to look at any evidence as well. She just continually kept saying, well, you're lying, and the doctors are lying, and maybe the papers are fake, and all this kind of stuff. None of it. She knew that she was breaking laws. She knows, of course, like if you attack another human being and punch them and kick them with your fists and feet, then that's not something that you're supposed to do outside of like maybe a karate dojo or something like that, or some sort of martial arts dojo, a boxing ring or something like that. But she still didn't care about any of this. Again, laws didn't apply to her. So like I said, I don't know what she was thinking, but I can remember back to before I got my diagnosis and my treatments and my medications, and I can remember crazy things that I thought back then as well. And of course, I'm a lot happier now. I'm a lot better now with the medications and whatnot. But that is the way that it is. But yeah, that's just for people that are first signing into to this. It took 15 minutes roundabout to explain all of that, so I'm not going to do that every time. I'll just try to, point back to this video each time that somebody else needs caught up with all of it. But the big updates with all of that, everything that was happening there, was I did go down to the Macoupin County Courthouse, and they said that it's not really their job. I was encouraged to do a small claims court. I had an app that was going to take care of all of that. So it's one of these robot lawyer apps, and they said that everything followed under the marriage laws. And I never knew that's something that no legal advice that I ever got from Scott Air Force Base, from their JAG lawyers. It's something I never got from Land of Lincoln. I don't know if I explained 100% of everything to them. It's something that I never got from any attorney that I called for a free consultation or something like that. Because, of course, I'm a full-time student. I don't have any money. But none of that. Nobody ever said it was all under marital laws. And they said that the state prosecutor said, or the county prosecutor, whoever he was down at the courthouse, he said that this isn't something that can happen now. Now that the divorce is over, I need somebody to attack and open up the case and reopen the marriage and put it in contention. The sequence of the divorce sequence and everything needs to be put into contention. And he said all of that. And again, that's something that I never heard from anybody. And whenever I was leaving the place, I was upset. But eventually I realized that they were really trying not to take a case from me that wasn't going to go anywhere, because there are processing fees, and they knew that I didn't have any money. And so even if it was $50 or something like that, it was going to be a significant amount of money from me. And they wanted to make sure that I had a solid case that was filed correctly before I ever did that. And that's not just me with rose-colored glasses on saying that they were doing the right thing. They actually mentioned that. They said the reason that we're doing that is because of this. It took a while for those words to get into my head. I left there very upset, but eventually the words kind of sunk in, and I realized that they're right. They're really trying to get me to a point where I'm doing this correctly. So they said everything about that is in a marital court. If somebody had told me that way back when, I could have been feeding all of this information, all of the medical records and everything, directly to her divorce lawyers in San Diego. But nobody told me all of that. So better now than never, I guess. But now I have to contact somebody in San Diego and try to find some sort of free or heavily reduced price lawyer. And I mean heavy reduced price lawyer, like $50 total for the case or something like that. So I could sell some old knickknacks at a pawn shop or something and maybe pay the fees. But besides that, there's nothing much else that I can do. I found some sort of Land of Lincoln style divorce lawyers in that area, around that area, and they said that due to this whole pandemic that's going on, they are taking applications, they're just not answering the phone. So they want me to fill out some sort of application. So I'm probably gonna have to do that sometime tomorrow or something like that. I was told I had a psychiatrist appointment last week, and it was over the phone. Of course, they don't want me to go to the hospital and possibly get other people sick or whatever. Whenever it's just a psychologist appointment, it's just, do we need to adjust your medication up, down, left, right, or whatever, these sorts of things. So the only thing extra that they ever did was take my weight and take my blood pressure, and I guess they consider it a non-necessity now that this pandemic is going on. They're probably very busy. But I had my phone call with the psychiatrist, and he said that he's going to get me in contact with the VA homeless program, and they're going to start to take a closer look at my case. And they are the ones that have a million different things branching off from there. I've been told before that I should start to seek disability again, some sort of VA disability. It's been a very it's an emotionally charged process in the first place. Whenever I first got out of active duty, I had been told in the TAPS class, which is the Transition Assistance Program, I've been told in that class to go straight to the VA and get yourself checked out because you don't know what's wrong with you, if there's anything wrong with you. The guy running the class said that he did that exact thing, and he always slept with a fan on and stuff like that. I had no idea that he was that he had ringing in his ears, tinnitus, and because he was always around loud machinery, he just didn't know that it had any effect on him. He goes to the VA, and suddenly he's got 50% disability. He said, "That's your money. That's your money from the government for doing what they told you to do." And he said, "That's your money, and even if you don't use it, your family can. You can give it away. You can give it to charity or something, but that's your money. It's like not going to the bank." But whenever I got out of that was in the TAPS class at Tinker Air Force Base, Oklahoma in 2011. That TAPS class, I have to be very specific because people want to know exactly, like who told me that. I don't know the name of the guy, but I know where I got that information and who from. The guy running the class. He ran the entire class. But whenever I got out of active duty in 2011, I went to John Cochran VA Medical Center. I think one of the first things I saw was somebody coming out of the entrance of the hospital with like one arm and one leg, and was being pushed along in a wheelchair. And I turned right around when I got back into my car. It is a very emotionally charged process. I was walking on 2 feet and going into the VA Medical Center to go, "Hey, I'm 23 or however old I was at the time, and I'm walking on 2 feet and everything. Can you give me money?" All that kind of stuff. It was a very uncomfortable process. I really didn't want to do that. I think that there's probably a lot of veterans out there that feel that way, where if somebody else has it worse, you don't want to use the attention from the doctors. You feel like you're wasting their time because you have all of your fingers and toes still. But eventually you figure out the statistics. You start to get armed with these statistics, and you start to figure out that I think it was the guy that filmed Restrepo. He did 2 TED Talks on it, Why Veterans Miss War, and there was a different TED Talk that he did as well. If you find one, you'll find the other. But he filmed that documentary, Restrepo, and the follow-up, Korengal. They're both filmed in the Korengal Valley. And he gathered a lot of the statistics